Our guest in this segment is Kelly Allen, and she's with the West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy, the executive director. Kelly, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Are you in Charleston this morning?
I'm in Morgantown.
Morgantown.
A little bit closer.
All right. Are you there regularly?
I live in Morgantown.
Oh, that works out nicely then.
Yeah, I try to be halfway between, or kind of in the center of all the action, so I can get everywhere quickly.
And if there's a football game or a basketball game that breaks out, boom, you're right there.
Yeah.
Works out nicely. Let's talk about a very serious subject here, and that is what's going on with SNAP benefits. And I know this is a question that comes up every now and then. What is the difference between food stamps and SNAP? It's actually the same thing, is it not, Kelly?
Yeah, SNAP is the program formerly known as food stamps. It's the most effective anti-hunger, anti-poverty program that we have. And here in West Virginia, it helps 1 in 6 West Virginians put food on the table, including about 100,000 children.
And I understand nationally that's 1 in 8?
Yes. We have, higher usage of the program here in West Virginia for lots of reasons. Higher rates of poverty, more seniors, more disabled folks, and it's a really impactful program in West Virginia. It brings in nearly $50 million a month in federal funding to those households. To help them make ends meet and get by. And it also helps our retailers, our grocers, our farmers.
All right. So specifically, what are the issues going on with SNAP benefits right now in relations to this government shutdown?
Well, USDA, which is the federal agency that administers SNAP, has been sending out some concerning notices to states over the last few weeks, saying that they do not plan to issue November SNAP benefits as long as the shutdown continues. Now, since its inception, SNAP benefits have never failed to go out, and they've never been delayed. And that is because SNAP has billions of dollars in a contingency fund available. And just last month, on September 30th, USDA published their own shutdown plan. They knew this was coming, and they said that their understanding is that the congressional intent was for this program to continue despite a shutdown, which is why they, provide billions of dollars in congressionally appropriated contingency funds. So just a month ago, USDA agreed that this program should continue despite the shutdown. But now it seems that it's being used essentially as a political tool to, I guess, force the government to reopen without any negotiations. And families across the state have, real legitimate concerns that SNAP benefits will not be on their cards November 1st unless USDA agrees to use their contingency funds or the government is reopened.
So what happens November 1st if we are still in a stalemate here and there aren't any SNAP benefits issued?
Well, as of right now, a lot of people are going to, struggle to meet their food and grocery needs. About half of states did file a lawsuit, I believe yesterday, saying that the USDA is legally required to continue funding SNAP regardless of a shutdown. They're legally required to tap those contingency funds and even to tap other funds that they have authority to move around, which they did with WIC earlier this month to keep the program going. So it could be that, that lawsuit forces their hand to issue November benefits, but we know things move through the court slowly. So there are real concerns that, hundreds of thousands of households in West Virginia will struggle to make ends meet starting, just this weekend.
How much money are we talking about in regards to a typical benefit for SNAP on a monthly basis?
So the average SNAP benefit in West Virginia is about $5.50 per person per day. So, it's a pretty modest amount to put 3 meals on the table, but it does make a huge difference for households.
So $5.50 per day per person. So over the course of a month, that would add up to $165, $155, something to that effect per person in the house.
That was impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 130 times 150. Yeah, okay, I got it. I'm doing the math in my head here. Yeah. All right, so
very good.
So if there's a couple of kids in the house, then you might be dealing with $300-400 in food benefits. Does it cover anything else besides food?
No.
All right, very good. Bill?
Yeah, good morning, Kelly. It's my understanding Virginia is not part of the lawsuit for the federal government to reinstitute SNAP. But the flip side is the governor has allocated some funds for the SNAP. How much the $50 million you said per month from the federal government, how much is the state prepared to put in?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. There are technical questions and other questions. So right now, SNAP benefits are 100% federally funded. That's going to change in a couple of years as a result of the big, beautiful bill. But right now, they're 100% federally funded. So that whole $50 million normally comes from the federal government. I think, I saw Virginia's governor announce that they're going to try to fill in the gap. Our own Governor Morrissey announced yesterday a matching fund that's going to go to the food banks that they can distribute. But I do think it's really important, one, everything that individuals and restaurants and food pantries and churches and the governor can do is helpful. But to be clear, anything short of that $50 million is not going to be a substitute to SNAP benefits loaded onto people's cards each month. And it's not sufficient for families who have children with allergies or special needs or specific diets. So as much as, that $13 million that Governor Morrissey committed to the food pantries will help, it's really important for Congress and USDA to get their act together and get these dollars out, because there are even technical questions. If the state wanted to load money onto SNAP cards, could they? We don't actually know how this would work, and we really need Congress and USDA to step up here.
You mentioned $13 million for match. I was thinking it was actually $20 million for match, but I'm probably wrong with that. But still, whether it's $20 or $13 million for match fund, that's short of the $50 million the feds provide on a monthly basis.
Exactly. And it's just not as accessible for all the reasons that we talked about, because, people can't really choose what they get at a food pantry and those sorts of things.
So, Kelly, what about this contingency fund that's sitting out there? It's just sitting there? I mean, there's no way to access that to, when you have a rainy day fund, you think that that's what it's for in a case like this, no?
I mean, I agree with you. And, USDA's own shutdown plan on September 30th, so less than a month ago, said the same thing. The reason that Congress allocates these contingency funds, billions of dollars each year, is to have in a moment like this. So I think, USDA either has to agree to release those dollars, which they've really dug in on and said they're not going to, or, this 25, 26 state lawsuit is going to have to force their hand. But I think the congressional intent is clear that that is what those contingency funds were for, and that, what emergency would be worse than this? We need to make sure we get these dollars out to families.
Yeah, I'm asking you to think, to place yourself in the mind of some of our folks, the West Virginia folks. Any reason at all that West Virginia did not become part of this lawsuit to release the SNAP funds?
Well, I think that would be a question for our Attorney General, J.D. McCuskey. My understanding is that these, are signed on to generally by a state's Attorney General. So, that would have to be a question for him.
Well, I can answer that, Bill, and I think you already know the answer.
Yes, I do know the answer.
Democrat states sued and Republican states didn't.
Exactly right, yeah.
Right. I think that's a pretty obvious answer.
I think it's important. There's been other lawsuits brought by Democratic states. One was related to SNAP enrollees' privacy. And when that lawsuit prevailed, only the states who had states signed onto it had SNAP privacy protected for their constituents. So I think, regardless of the political pressure, if the lawsuit prevails, but it only applies to the states that were a party to it, I think we would want to make sure we were part of that.
Yeah. Kelly, I'll answer a question I think you will know the answer to. You mentioned the impact it has on West Virginia. Relatively speaking to the other states, are we in more dire need of SNAP than other states?
Well, if you look at either the rates in terms of the percentage of people that rely on the program, or the data around the number of households that suffer with food insecurity, I think, yes, we would be disproportionately impacted if SNAP benefits were not distributed in November.
Yeah, Kelly at the beginning of the segment said that 1 in 6 West Virginians receive SNAP benefits. Nationally, that number I heard this morning on news was 1 in 8.
Yes.
So it is a greater percentage here in West Virginia. So, Kelly, are you aware at this time, are there other charities that are in a scenario where they're looking to fill the void at this point? Has there been any word on a unified effort to try to step up and fill the gap by churches or local organizations?
Well, the most unified step I've heard was Governor Morrissey's press conference yesterday, where he said the state would use his his own contingency funds, I guess, to match public donations and private donations up to $13 million. I think if you go to his website or his social media, folks can donate there, and that will be distributed to the state's 2 food banks that will distribute it out. And we're also, I mean, this is West Virginia. We're seeing folks across the state step up. I've seen restaurants offer meals to people impacted. We know churches are opening their doors and doing what they can. So just like we all knew what happened, tons and tons of West Virginians are stepping up. But that does not absolve, I don't think, USDA or Congress from distributing the funds that they need to.
I know you're not in the prediction business, but how do you think this plays out? We had a 35-day shutdown back in 2018. This one's rapidly approaching that.
Well, I mean, President Trump is a deal maker, right? I think as soon as he says that, everybody needs to get to the table and sit down and figure out what it will take to either, Senate could get rid of the filibuster, or they can, figure out what they need to do to hit 60 votes, what compromises they need to make. I think if he sat at the head of the table and brought folks around it, the shutdown could end today.
By the way, Saturday is November the 1st, and this weekend we fall back 1 hour with the clocks. Remember, spring ahead, fall back, so you turn your clock back 1 hour this weekend. So November 1st means we have 2 months, and then we hit January where we begin a new legislative session this year. So we did it in February last time because there was a new governor, so we always do it every 4 years in February, but the rest of the time it's January. What's on the legislative agenda for the West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy this upcoming legislative session that's of importance, Kelly?
Well, everything feels so tied to federal action right now. I briefly mentioned earlier the one big beautiful bill, the big reconciliation package that Congress passed over the summer, and they enacted big sweeping changes to both Medicaid and SNAP that are going to be slowly phased in over the next couple of years. And a lot of the cuts or the savings that they found at the federal level were pushing costs down onto states. So starting in January, state lawmakers are going to have to come up with about another $10 million a year to fund SNAP administrative costs. Now, the benefits are federally funded, but the administrative costs are shared. So it pushes more of those costs onto the state. And then a lot of Medicaid changes that impact how providers are reimbursed are going to start kicking in. So there are going to be hard decisions about Medicaid and how providers are reimbursed that either the state is going to have to figure out how to shoulder, or, we might see some cuts to either provider reimbursements or programs within Medicaid. So the federal actions are creating a lot of hard choices for state lawmakers and maybe some budget holes that they're going to have to fill.
And are there other items that kick in after the midterm elections that you would regard as being adverse as well? Yeah,
so some extensions of who's subject to SNAP work requirements, those are kicking in now. But lots of folks, about 160,000 adults on Medicaid, will be subject to work reporting requirements. And that doesn't start until December 31st, 2026, so after the midterm elections. And then there's other funding mechanisms that are like phased down. So SNAP, the state will also have to start shouldering a part of SNAP benefits. That also phases in after the midterm. So this is going to be kind of a slow-moving, train wreck if you think it's bad, but slow-moving implementation of some of these provisions that kick a lot of costs down onto the state.
Kelly, with the Medicaid funding cut, there's been a lot of talk about the impact on regional hospitals, especially rural hospitals in the throughout the state. Depending upon who you talk to, you get a totally different perspective. I've heard the fact all the way the spectrum, it's not going to impact you, it's going to be a severe impact, we're going to lose hospitals. What is the position of the West Virginia Center on Policy or Budget and Policy, the impact upon the rural hospitals?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on the decisions that state lawmakers make, again, because it punts a lot of hard decisions and costs onto them. But the Medicaid changes impact hospitals in two ways. So one, we think a lot of people are going to lose health coverage as a result of these new reporting requirements. So that means more people without insurance coming into the hospital and drawing uncompensated care, most likely. So that's bad for hospitals' bottom line. But at the other end, there's all these changes to things called the provider tax and state-directed payments that basically mean what federal dollars that we've been using to reimburse providers are also going to dry up. So that could mean even for people that stay on Medicaid, hospitals will get lower reimbursements or fewer reimbursements or fewer services will be covered. So because West Virginia, has a big portion of our population on Medicaid, and that's a big portion of hospital reimbursements, it is really concerning, particularly for rural hospitals that see a lot of Medicaid recipients. I hope hospitals won't close. I don't want to put that out into the world, but I think there are going to be a lot of hard decisions ahead to sustain our hospitals. And hopefully Congress will say some of these provisions that are way out, they still have time to reverse them or make sure they're not implemented at all.
There was, thanks to Senator Hawley from Missouri, I think there's $50 billion going to be directed toward this throughout the states. Is that on a annual basis or is that on a decadal basis?
That's for you're stumping me on the total amount, but I know West Virginia expects to get $100 to $200 million a year for 5 years. It's only a 5-year program. Now, to put that in perspective, the cuts to Medicaid are expected to total $1 billion once they're phased in. And the rules for the Rural Health Transformation Program came out from CMS a couple of weeks ago and said only 15% of that $100 to $200 million can be used to pay providers. So it's very clear it's not going to fill the holes in terms of reimbursements to hospitals and healthcare clinics. So it remains to be seen what it'll be used for. But I think that'll help, but it's not going to close the gap.
So overall, Kelly, are you, I hate to even ask this question, but I will. Are you optimistic, pessimistic? How long will the shutdown continue in your opinion?
I mean, I'm concerned. I think everyone's pretty dug in, and I don't see where the impetus is to come together and negotiate and do what's best for the American people and West Virginians. I know this is going to get more painful for regular folks as it goes on, and it's a shame that families are, the victim of essentially collateral or pawns in what's a political fight that nobody wants to see.
With new work requirements or even more enforced work requirements in the future for those getting benefits, Kelly, will the center be doing any lobbying in regards to daycare legislation?
Oh, well, I was just actually a part of a retreat around folks that are working on childcare. So I think that's really important. That's a big piece of the puzzle. One thing that keeps people out of the workforce sometimes is that, they don't have affordable childcare. There's not childcare at all, or, their paycheck would be nothing once they pay for it. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle. And we'll continue to hopefully work with our partners to ensure lawmakers see that that's really a big priority going forward.
Kelly, final word is yours, and then I'll let you get on with your day.
Well, I hope that our members of Congress join us in urging USDA to release these contingency funds. And urge our Attorney General to join the lawsuit because, again, families, kids, seniors should not be, pawns in a political fight that shouldn't be happening.
Thank you very much. Say hello to Seth for me, please.
Will do. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.